Chippity poppity bippity boopity boppity bippity boppity skippity boppity bippity boppity. It's the next day. Hello everybody, my name is Stonesy Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Today we are reading pages 121 to 140, aka 123 to 140, because once again, I've read too far and I'm probably going to do it again today. Actually, let me go check page 140. Is he speaking? Is my favorite character speaking? No. So we actually might just get and stop at 140 today, which is good because next episode is 141 to 159. So, maybe we won't have a terribly short episode. So, without further ado, because we are about a minute on the clock for an intro, let's begin. Margie sat on the floor cross-legged in the hallway outside of Jake's room. Her back was pressed against the wall. The house smelled like chocolate pudding and she made to Jake a couple hours before, and the lemon polish she'd rubbed in the hallway's wood trim in the morning. Evan didn't expect her to do things like polish woodwork, and Jake was better off in the house stayed gym-free, and she was better off without keep moving. So when Jake slept, she found things to do. The whole house was spotless and shining. Slumped against the glossy hardwood baseboard, Margie let tears slide down her face. She didn't want to listen. It felt like eavesdropping. Unless she put earplugs, she couldn't avoid hearing Jake and his visitor were saying. And she could never put earplugs or earphones or that matter. She always needed to be able to hear Jake. And she listened to Jake told Simon she wasn't trying to play the best pinball in the world and he'd like to try. I do too, Simon said. Margie got to the stereo effect to listen to Simon's voice. It was something through the door, muffled, and it was also coming through the phone she held up in her right hand, which was a position right next to the backup baby monitor she held in her left hand. Margie felt like a magician, with the magic secrets hidden behind a shimmering curtain. If Jake got out of bed and came to the hall, she'd see how the magic worked. But he wouldn't get out of bed without Margie's help. The secret was safe. And when even Evan's idea, and Margie thought it was brilliant. Evan called Jake almost every day. In the first few months of the tumor he just found, Jake was receptive and put his dad's positive encouragement. When Evan said, "Keep your chin up," Jake always said brightly, "I will." And when the surgery failed and Jake would go through the radiation and chemotherapy, he started getting sullen. For months, Evan tried to encourage Jake, and for months, Jake refused to accept the cheer. Evan told Margie they needed some magic. Jake needed to believe in someone who could pull him out of the horror of the daily life and lead him to joy, a different possibility. And that's how Simon was born. Jake knew about the baby monitor that sat on top of his chest of drawers. He didn't like it, but he knew it was there and he accepted any need for it. But he didn't, however, know about the backup monitor that was inside the little white cabinet. The monitor was linked to one of the Margie held, and now picked up played Evan's disguised voice from inside the cabinet. Even still overseas was Simon. Evan decided Jake was be more responsive to someone his own age, so Evan downloaded a voice distorter to turn your voice into a little kid's voice. And when Evan suggested the idea of becoming a little friend for Jake, a friend who lived in Jake's cabinet and only visited at bedtime, Margie wasn't sure Jake would listen to Simon any more than he listened to Evan. But she went along with it. She was still willing to try anything. But Jake didn't listen. He clearly loved those nightly visits and made her smile. And he closed his eyes right after and good night. He knew he was trying to get her to leave the room faster. The more he imagined himself as a normal little boy, Evan told Margie, the greater the odds he could be someday. He had to give hope. Margie had agreed. Jake started getting sleepy while Simon was talking about pinball machines. He wanted to hear about Simon said, "You know a secret about being good at pinball?" "What?" Jake asked. "Nudge and tilt." "What does that mean?" "Well, some people think it's cheating, but I don't know. It's like when you shove the machine, when you hit or something. Sometimes when the flippers won't do what you want, you can save the ball with a little bump of sort." "I wish," Jake stopped himself. He was about to say he wished he could try that someday. Instead, he said, "I'm going to try that next time Brandon and I go to the arcade." "Yeah? Cool." Jake yawned loudly. "I think you need to get some sleep," Simon said. Jake mumbled. "Yeah, I think so too. And remember," Simon said, "when you can walk again, come open the door of the cabinet. I'll be here waiting for you." "I remember," Jake said, and he fell asleep. Margie quickly took and walked away from Jake's door. "How are you and Jake doing?" Evan asked, and she put the phone to her ear. Margie stepped to the living room and sat down in the small olive sectional under the front picture window. "I'm okay. I think I'm draining him more, though. He's weaker than usual." Margie had already told Evan about the adored arcade trip. But Evan was proud of Jake's attempt, but relieved he had made it far. "That could have been bad," he said. "Very, very bad," Margie and Evan said together. She grinned thinking about how Jake had started. Evan Dad wanted Jake to meet his uncle for the first time. Michael, even a brother in an only living family that lived in Europe for years, and he never met Jake or Jake's mom. Michael was back in the States, and Evan was taking Jake to Margie to meet him. The one drive away was several hours. Michael is a serious dude. Evan award Jacob Margie as the travel. He's a little different. He's intense in making money, and he's really good at it. But the way he is about it, and just the way he is, can make him seem like he's not human. So he's like a cyborg without programming? Jacob had asked. They all laughed. Just before they arrived at the hotel where Michael was staying, Jake had eaten a candy bar. No one thought of it much until Jake tried to hug his uncle. Michael, spotting the chocolatey fingers, he had stepped out of Jake's reach. I must exercise caution. You could get chocolate on my suit, and that'd be bad. Very, very bad. They all had an awkward, stiff dinner together, and then they headed home. Driving down the freeway in the dark, Evan had said they should stop for gas and they run off. And that would be bad, Margie had said. Jake piped out of the back seat, saying in a very imitation of Uncle, very, very bad. Margie smiled at the memory. Margie, you there? Evan's voice nudged through the phone. Sorry, I was thinking about the trip to meet Michael. Oh, that was bad. Very, very bad, they said again. In unison, they laughed. Margie wondered when the joke would get old. Speaking of Michael, I'll talk to him. I hate to ask him for favors, but I can't afford the air conditioning right now. I'll ask him to get one for Jake. Sometimes the soldiers stack it up and take one for the team, Margie said. Even laughed. You do that every day. What I do is a privilege, Margie asked. Evan was silent when he cleared his throat and said he had to go. Now Margie leaned against Jake's door and listened, not even breathing coming through the baby monitor. Jake didn't snore, so it was challenging to know when he was deeply asleep. Once, when she was sure he'd gone to sleep, she'd open the door of the room and only had him sit up and say, What's wrong, Margie? He had to think fast. I thought I heard you call out, she said. Jake had accepted it. He must have been dreaming, he thought. Tonight, though, when Margie opened the door, Jake didn't sit up. He kept breathing deeply, with inhales and exhales. He was asleep. But Margie still didn't move. He stood by the door with her eyes closed, listening to breathing. Her closed eye blocked the evidence of Jake's illness. They erased the IV stand lurking in the corner of the room. Jake didn't need it right now, but sometimes, when he couldn't keep anything down, they had to hook him up and receive fluids and nutrients. Her closed eyes removed the hospital bed and the line of perception meditation bottles marching across the top of the chest drawers. They also transformed Jake's bald head into a thick brown mess of hair that Margie could remember, detailing that his first started taking care of Jake. He liked having his hair long, and Evan let him. There is also no law that says boys can't have short hair, Evan said. Margie thought it was funny coming from a man with a buzz cut. Margie opened her eyes and adjusted to reality. There was Jake, curled up on his side, body clenched against Jake's chest and belly, tucked under his chin. The pale yellow glow of the nightlight put a shine on Jake's bald head and cast deeper than usual shadows under his eyes. He was sleeping in his sleep, smiling in his sleep. That made Reggie happy. He hoped he was playing an arcade running through the sprinklers, which reminded her he needed to get to work. Reggie was 3 nights behind on her ongoing project. 2 nights before, Jake's sleep was been unsettled. He kept waking up. Margie was sure it was caused by a change in dosage in one of the medications. Thankfully, Evan had arranged for her to have the authority to deal with directly the doctors about Jake's care. So she got Dr. Boderman, told him that she was returning to Jake's original dosage. That would do the trick. But then the next night when he slept, she was so tired that she fell asleep and never got to the project. When Margie first started working for Evan, he thought she was going to hate the sleeping arrangement. Being stuck in a low room in a half floor, she didn't even look for a living position. She liked her little apartment, and she was sure claustrophobia would do her in if she stayed there. But the position was full-time, with Evan being away so much. And over time, the house ended up charming her. Chock full of wood and trim and built-in shelving and cabinetry of the common of craftsman's home, this house has been more character within its walls. The original owner was obviously been fond of putting things out on the site. Because the builder had put little hidey holes in every room, he also built funny little pieces of furniture specific to certain rooms, which have stayed in the house over the years. One of these pieces was a small white cabinet in Jake's room. Because Jake had plenty of storage in the closet and other parts of the room, the cabinet was sat empty for years. Now, though, it had a purpose. Margie's project waited for her to Jake's little cabinet, which was only a few feet from Jake's bed. But behind the left the ugly green plaid chair. Although she would take her project out of the cabinet and work on it in a room, she would never seem to do it right. Her project lived in the little cabinet. Moving it felt wrong. Jake let a deep sigh in his sleep. Margie froze with her hand to the cabinet door. She breathed in and out. Sadness, but the strange medical smells in the room. When Jake didn't move again, he grasped the knob and closely pulled the door open. Margie quietly sat down at the open door, and she waited for sure Jake was still sleeping deeply. She turned to the headlight lamp she wore and designed for crafters who wanted to sleep up close, but it suited Margie's needs perfectly. It allowed her to aim a small beam at the task without lighting up too much of the room. Jake usually slept hard. There was a low chance he'd wake him, but she didn't want to take the chances. In the glow of her headlamp, Margie's project told her the simple hand-drawn eyes, one of which blackened. "Hi, cutie," Margie whispered. Margie's project didn't respond. It was a good thing. Margie's project was dull. If it would respond to her, she had shot up, whacked it on the head, and run for her life. This doll was Evan's brainchild. almost 3 feet high, with plain white, at least originally, and now covered in evidence of adventures Jake had been in his mind with Simon. Margie's project was an exercise in hope, or maybe even more than hope. It was an exercise in belief. If you were to fuse an object with enough love and intention, well, that's have life. Everyone apparently thought so, though maybe Margie did too now. The white doll standing in front of Margie with such an object born simply of white cloth, with no face, no clothing, and no features for details of any kind. This doll was now embodied the life of a heavy version of Jake. Weeks of real Jake experience were drawn all over the doll. A blackened die, for example, representing the day the real Jake stood up to a school bully. Drawn on missing lower teeth represented the day Jake tried a tough trick with a skateboard. The doll's pockets were overflowing with drawings of tickets to movies and amusement parks and zoos. The doll's body was strained with trials and tribulations, a joyful child's life. This doll was a reminder that the boy in question, although fading, was not gone yet. He still had enough imagination to conjure another adventure. Margie set the zipper bag, the color markers, and the green carpeted floor, and full of a piece of paper in the jeans pocket. The paper held out the activities that the real Jake had done in the previous 3 days. When Jake talked to Simon, Margie took notes. Laying on the paper floor next to the zipper bag, Margie pulled a thick brown marker out of the bag. Nearly every detail of the doll started to make his markers. Sometimes, though, Margie needed to add color. Like now, putting a check mark under the butter on her list. Margie chose a pale yellow marker, too. Concentrating, she knew the butter strain around the doll's mouth. And then she traded a pale yellow marker for a thick brown one, the edge mark of popcorn kernel between 2 teeth. It would look pretty realistic if she did say so herself. She knew the art degree would go good something. Maybe she was missing her calling. She should have been a real kid doll decorator. Maybe Margie grinned and looked at her list. Ah, the splendor. Although Margie drew additions to the doll, sometimes she used props. Like today, reaching in her pocket, Margie pulled out a little plastic bag. Inside the bag were 2 splinters, one of maybe half an inch long. The other was more than a speck. She put one of the splinters on the pad of the doll's index finger, and she put the other splinter on the very tip of the doll's middle finger. Margie looked at her list again. She checked off popcorn and splinters. She moved to the pizza sauce. The doll already had a pizza sauce stain on its chin. Margie added another one in the corner of its mouth, then rubbed a little garlic powder into the white cloth. Like adding a sense to the realism as she would. Like chocolate stain from a few nights ago, she used real chocolate for that, so the doll smelled chocolatey sweet. Satisfied with the pizza stain, she moved on with the rainbow colors of the fingerprints on her nails. It was fun. She didn't put different color at the end of every one of the doll's fingers. Then, using black marker, she drew arcade tickets coming from the doll's pockets. Then once again, she used the prop and she glued a smiley face eraser to the doll's hand. She thought the little tidbit was so important that she'd sent Gilligan's daughter, Patty, to the arcade to win an eraser for her. It only cost Archie $5 worth of quarters to get it. After she attached the eraser, she gave the doll a small tongue, and she colored purple stains on it. And then she studied the doll's feet. He'd never seen draw shoes on the doll. If she was going to draw a broken shoelace with the shoes, for several minutes, Margie bent over the doll's feet and drew green tennis shoes. Green was Drake's favorite color, and besides, green went the grass stains of the doll's knees. The doll had a lot going in the knee area. In addition to the grass stains, the knees and reddish scrapes and various hues of brown smudges of sliding into base and dirt and mud. The Margie finished her work of the night. She sat back and studied the doll. It was turning into a hot mess with details she kept adding, but she knew that when Jake got to see it, he'd love it. It was intended to be surprised when all was well again. Then she would walk and she'd go to the cabinet, open the door, find the doll, and she'd see things Jake did while sick Jake concentrated on getting well. Margie ignored the sharp twist of her intestines when she thought she heard Jake getting well, when her inner compass telling her that Jake's recovery by no means something you would expect. In fact, it was becoming less of a possibility every day. Stop it, Margie scolded herself in a whisper. He's going to be fine. She gathered the materials and stood. She made sure she closed the cabinet door before tiptoeing out of the room. Jake tried to concentrate on totaling up the rent money he owed to Margie for landing in a hotel-heavy property. She was having trouble counting the gazillion hotels she had, mostly because she was struggling to figure out which were the real hotels and which were echo hotels. She had the same issue with the money. It was real money and which was echo money. Of course, there was no real money, but Jake wished he had at least sure she was part of the world that he was being manufactured by his pine nut. Well, no, it wasn't exactly right. His pine nut didn't make it echoes. Jake concentrated to remember that Dr. Boderman told him right. Dr. Boderman had said that because Jake's tumor was close to the nuclei that they're in charge of eye movements. The tumor pushed in places they shouldn't. So the nuclei would make Jake see double. Jake had to look up the nuclei to understand what Dr. Motorman was saying. He found out that the nuclei was the neural platform of nucleus, and he looked up nucleus and he discovered the nucleus was a little group of neurons in the central nervous system. Of course, when he had to look that up, neurons and central nervous system, he found out that the nucleus was nerve cell and electrically excitable cell that made him laugh. He can imagine a little cell plugging into electricity and dancing all around like crazy. The central nervous system, he learned, was a combination of a brain and spine. All the nerves had made it so that the humans could move and feel and think. So basically, this little group of excitable cells was getting too crazy, and while they were partying, they were bothering Jake's eye cells, seeming kind of rude of him, and he wished the nuclei would calm down. He was tired of seeing double. Jake returned to the tension accounting, but he realized that he didn't make a mistake. He had to start over. He didn't want to start over. Grunting, Jake leaped out and flipped the game board off his bed, sending fake money and echoes of fake money flying through the air along with the houses, hotels, and little playing pieces, like the tiny dog almost hit Margie in the eye. She said, "Hey!" But Jake immediately felt bad, and then he was angry that he felt bad, so he screamed. He screamed at the top of his lungs, and Margie didn't stop him. All she did was get up and step close to his bedroom window. The closing window didn't stop him, though. "Why'd you close it? Are you afraid people are going to think you're murdering me?" Margie looked at him and rolled her eyes. "As if, kiddo. If I wanted to, I could end you so quickly you didn't ever make a sound." Jake's eyes got big. Margie interrupted in a clumsy ninja pose and shouted, "Ayah!" and pretended to kick towards Jake's bed. That made him laugh. Then Margie dropped her foot, stepped on another game piece, and started hopping around the food. Jake laughed even harder. "Sure, mock my pain," she said. Jake kept laughing. Margie stopped and hopping when she went back to the window. "It's hot in here. You closed the window." Jake giggled. "You did." "Oh, did I?" "Yeah, I'll take your word for it." Margie began cleaning up the game. "I assume you're done with this for now." You asked, normal to throw a tantrum over a stupid board game. "I'm sorry," Jake said. "I got frustrated." "No," Margie said to pretend relief. "You don't say. I just figured your wires got crossed as these circuits were frying." Jake laughed again. Margie grinned at him. In terms of picking up fake money and game pieces of tiny hotels in the house. "I love you, Margie," Jake said. Margie stopped moving. She was bent over, her face turned away from Jake. It took a couple seconds, but she finally straightened and looked at him. Her eyes were moist. "I love you too, Jake." Margie sat on the front porch, swinging in the dark. She was finished with her daily project. Jake was sleeping restlessly, and she baby monitored in the pocket as usual. It was too hot for the little room to sleep. He tried relieving on the sofa, but her thoughts would return off, and there she was, using her foot to rock herself back and forth in the hopes and the soothing motion that would relax her. The sky was filled with stars, muted with some of the city in the distance. A couple fireflies darted in and out of the drooping boxer in the corner of the house. Crickets chirped, and the sound of oldies music in the TV show was a lot of shooting wafted across the streets and the open windows. The air smelled dusty and stale. Summer was getting old. Everyone was counting the days until fall brought cooling breezes and the relief of the steady rain. Would Jake make it to fall? Margie groaned and rocked the porch, swinging faster. Her days were getting harder. Not only was Jake's double vision becoming more intense, and the headaches were worsening too, increases in painkiller doses had made him weaker. His last 2 rounds of chemotherapy hit him hard. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that Dr. Benjamin announced that his oncology team was stopping treatment. "We don't have anything else," she told Margie after Jake's last round of chemo. "All we can do is manage his symptoms. If he gets to be too much for you, we can move him to the hospice." "He's not too much," Margie said. Dr. Benjamin nodded and patted her head. "I understand." "Did he?" Margie wondered. "Is this just his nanny?" He heard one of the nurses say the previous week someone had said the nurse if she was Jake's mom. The nurse said, "No, the mom's dead. She's just a nanny." Sometimes Margie wished she was one of the robots Jake liked so much. She wouldn't be just a nanny. She'd be no bothersome feelings to deal with. She hadn't been just a nanny. She started off to say yes, but she lived with the Jake for 3 years. She spent enough time with him that she knew him like a son, even back when he was well, before he became an invalid refused to be. She even come to love Evan too, not in any romantic way, but more like a brother. When he was home on leave, gave Margie an option to go on vacation, which had no place she wanted to go be for more than 2 days. A couple times she'd gone home to visit her parents and some old friends while Evan was home. Gilligan would help Evan out when Margie was away, but Margie wasn't long gone. No. So the 3 of them became like a little family, and she was included in outings and movie nights and game nights and a storytelling time, and then of course when Evan was overseas she became Jake's whole world, and now he was her whole world, and she even couldn't muster enough positivity to convince herself that her world was going to continue to spin in its axis. Margie's parents wanted her to come back home. "You're going to be crushed when the door dies. You should get to know her while you can," her dad said to her. "Leave it to the entire Marine to access the emotion of an equation, like when she chopped Jake's falling body in a hospice center, pack up her things and leave, and forget I ever had a boy named Jake. Just thought made her so angry she wanted to climb through the phone line and strangle her dad. What happened to you leave no man behind, Dad? Why do you think I want to get you out?" he said. "I'm trying to bring you home whole. It's too late for that." Margie had to deal with it, like she always had. But then the call came. And that is the end of that for today. And that's okay. 19 minutes on the clock. That's pretty good. So today we read pages. Do I have that opened? Yes, I do. Actually, that was something else entirely. Oops. Wait, why would it show that? I don't know. Today we read pages 121 to 140, and next time we are doing a really easy episode. I'm sorry, I copied the wrong thing. Of pages 141 to 159 being 18 pages, but it's also the finale. And we left off on a cliffhanger with it being left off on a call. So that's spooky. Anyways, I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. If you like me fishing, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.